Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to episode 110, featuring Tim Dierckxsens, the CEO of Venly.io, which is a blockchain API platform that's helping a lot of companies seamlessly integrate into Web3 and the blockchain. Welcome, Tim. How are you doing today?
Thanks, David. Happy to be here. I'm doing fine. Sunny day here in Belgium.
Nice. Joining us from Belgium. Love it. It's a nice international platform we have here. We like to speak to people from all over the world, and I'm really interested in Venly.io and what you're doing to really help Web3 grow and help people kind of integrate or help businesses integrate Web3 into their platform. So thanks for joining us from Belgium. It's bright in the morning here. It's almost evening where you're at, but we're going to make it work, you know? So I'm glad we were able to connect. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is David Karoma. I'm the host, and I go by Chrome in the metaverse. And as always, we're going to be looking at the creator economy on the blockchain. And we have often kind of revisited this topic of Web3 gaming and really just websites that maybe weren't made for blockchain specifically, but that want to add blockchain and want to integrate Web3 components and make it easier. And then, of course, the whole gaming conversation around how are Web3 games going to be sticky and engaging and fun, but also have the blockchain ownership component, also make it easy to access your wallets and easy to get things done and be on chain and have more ownership of your assets within the game. So really, that's what we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be looking at making integration easier and learning from Tim here with Venly on what they're doing to make things a little bit easier in that conversation. So without further ado, we're going to turn things over to Tim here. And maybe before we jump into Venly.io and the platform and everything you're working on there, we'd love to hear just a little bit of background about yourself. You know, what brought you to crypto and Web3, and why are you doing what you're doing in the space right now? So thank you for joining, Tim.
Yeah, thanks. A little bit about myself. Well, started back in 2014, 15, 16 as a business consultant. What I was doing there was translating all the needs and business requirements that enterprises would have into software solutions and figuring out a better way to build software for the needs of a business. I did that in various industries. I consulted for companies in the postal industry, for supply chain, for music industry. And I always came back to, well, a lot of the cases I was building on was transaction based,
Hmm.
and there was no transparency. There was no real insight of how sometimes conditions were applied in the back end of things, and it just happened that at that time there was an amazing use case for the music industry where blockchain and smart contracts really made sense.
Hmm.
So I dived in a little bit deeper, and then I understood a little bit more the value of blockchain technology. This is back in 2014. And I didn't do anything with it. 2 years later, I was talking to a friend at the bank, and he was saying, I'm doing this interesting proof of concept using Ethereum. So there's again another industry where you can say, well, blockchain is going to be very interesting and big. And then I convinced my co-founders, we were in the postal industry as consultants at the time, to look into blockchain technology and then to understand whether it had legs under it. And yeah, it took some time to convince them that it was really interesting. And we started building applications on top of blockchain, and then came up with the first hurdle, the second hurdle, the third hurdle, just all this unnecessary complexity where I said, well, no mature business is ever going to interact or build on blockchain with the infrastructure as is. And we saw that as a problem that we needed to solve because we were experiencing that while we were building applications. So if we can't find the services out there, we might as well build the services. And fast forward about 8 years later, we're here today offering the platform and the software as a service.
Very cool, very cool. So you saw a gap in the user experience and the integration and making things a little bit more seamless, a little bit more easy and kind of usable, right? So everything was kind of conceptual, it seems like, right? And it's still part of that, right? I feel like you kind of we build it as we're going along, right? And when you run into certain hurdles, you just, address them, or you adapt and maybe go a different direction, right? So what would you say is kind of the mission and vision of Venly, and what's that kind of solution that you're offering to the Web3 space? And maybe give us some example use cases if you can.
Mission vision is actually super boring at our at Bentley. It's making blockchain simple, making sure that it's super easy to integrate.
Nice.
We love to look at amazing companies out there that simplify integrations. Think about how Stripe simplifies payments, the complexity of getting payments into anything e-commerce or digital. It's just super easy and intuitive to do so, but yeah, that's because they just do all of that heavy lifting. I think that's where we want to take on the same mindset and simplify blockchain, because that's the instead of the payment, it's a blockchain infrastructure, and make that as easily available into the digital atmosphere as possible. So we are more on it doesn't matter if it's Web 2 or Web 3, or if you want to call it Web 2.5. We're out there just to provide a better API experience, a better, sometimes no-code experience, where you can say, well, you're using decentralized infrastructure and you're making it applicable for your use case.
Interesting. So, for example, use case, I have a friend who is kind of looking at a really cool AI-based Forex platform that also integrates crypto, and a lot of the coding in that is done, but the Web3 component is not yet, integrated. Would that be an example where maybe a Venly can come in and kind of show them some good options to integrate with your API and be able to make that digital wallet, that ownership option kind of easy and seamless? And is there a conversation between custodial versus non-custodial, and are you able to kind of support either option for businesses?
Absolutely. So one of the features that a platform has is offering a non-custodial self-custody solution as a wallet provider. If you want to be a custodian, and if there is a license applicable to it, then you can change the architecture to become a custodian yourself, but then you're going to have to check the legal framework. And that just gives you the two different options. What we then also look at is it's not just about wallet infrastructure, right? You mentioned AI. Well, we're seeing blockchains. I don't know if you know, for example, ZeroG.ai.
I don't believe so, no. I'm familiar with AGI. I know AGI token's been working on some things for a little bit.
ZeroG.ai, they're still on DevNet and testnet, and they're developing a modular AI chain.
Wow.
So what is their use case and their focus is they want to provide a scalable data availability layer and a data storage system so that you can actually run AI agents in a decentralized fashion to then make it applicable for your use case. Because let's face it, you're giving a lot of data through AI that is controlled by Microsoft or OpenAI, and you just don't know what's going to happen or what's going to be done. So they then have a thesis that says AI should actually be run on a decentralized environment because that's going to be safer for the world. So
100%. Are you familiar with AGIX? Because they had been
no, that's one.
So that's another one that had a similar kind of model that basically artificial general intelligence is going to happen, and if it's going to happen, it should happen on chain in a transparent, accountable way. So that's kind of their argument as well. But I'll definitely look into that ZeroT.ai and AGIX. I can't remember the name of the CEO right now, but he's very well known in the AI space. He's a very tech forward kind of cool guy. So I'd recommend checking that one out too. But yeah, back to that use case example though, right? Is that kind of the offer, the the promise of Venly is kind of a not quite plug and play, like you probably still need some coding experience and know-how, but essentially if you have a platform and all you're missing is kind of that Web3 component, come to Venly and we'll make that easy for you to integrate. Is that kind of the offer?
Yeah, that's indeed the offer. It's where well, typically you'd have to look at it at this, right? You have the blockchain networks and you have so many out there. We are a blockchain agnostic API platform, so you can come to Bentley and then not take on the risk to be on one single blockchain because you never know what's going to happen. Just look at Terra Luna last year. That wasn't a good experience for a lot of the businesses that just went directly on chain without a middleware platform like us in between. Then it's where we're also looking at, once you have the blockchain, you have your RPC nodes and you have your data APIs, right? And that's like the layer on top of that. You have to get your chain information from somewhere.
Right.
We've ran that ourselves for certain chains, but we also take on that service into our APIs so that once you would then want to build on top of that, as in solutions on top, we have wallet infrastructure, you have the token APIs to create token contracts, you have your NFT API to create your NFT contracts, and yeah, all of our APIs then manages all the communication to and from the chains, and you don't have to shop around to get all of these puzzle pieces together because we provide more that all-in-one experience through the platform. Nice. And then from there, we look at, this is our developer platform. This is where the developers can come and play and experience all of the APIs, or they can look into the integrations. And on the integration side, then it can be like, well, we have a specific integration for Shopify. On Shopify, you can have a Shopify store. Any Shopify store owner can go to the Shopify marketplace and search for Venly NFT or Venly NFT Minter or something like that. And they can download the app. They will have a no-code solution within Shopify to then be able to manage and sell and distribute the on-chain assets through a basic Shopify experience.
Wow. I assume that would have to be a custodial situation to set that up.
No, that's not the custodial. No, that's not custodial.
Wow.
Because as a Shopify admin, what you're doing is you're setting up your NFT collection or your digital asset collection within the store, and it's not yet created or minted yet. It's only created, minted, and distributed at the purchase.
At the time of purchase, and it goes right into their wallet.
And then a wallet is created usually because most of those people don't have a wallet yet, or if they're already a Venly user, then they would get it directly inside the Venly wallet indeed. Oh, okay. But it is an end user wallet that we then create and they can claim.
Okay, so you claim a wallet with Venly on the given blockchain that the person who set this up with their Shopify account gets to decide which blockchain they're offering these NFTs assets on, right?
Yeah, so on Shopify, we have 3 apps running, one for Avalanche, one for Polygon, and one for Hedera.
Okay. So more of the layer 2 solutions, I guess. Well, Hedera is a layer 1, isn't it?
Hedera is a layer 1 indeed,
right.
Quite specific.
Right, no doubt. Yeah, that's interesting. A little bit more niche. I can't say I've collected a Hedera NFT myself yet, but that would be cool. I do definitely have a bunch of Polygon ones, and probably I think I have a few Avalanche, but Hedera not so much. So that's cool. What does the back end of that look like when you're? Is it open source? So you kind of just built this for Shopify and offer it there, or is it something where you actually had to reach out to Shopify, get approvals, have some kind of formal partnership? What does that look like?
It is a formal partnership. Shopify reached out to us because it was about 3-4 years ago. We were actually a backend tech provider for some of the larger NFT sales that were happening.
Okay.
And our client Bondi, they were doing actually the Logan Paul sale. and Logan Paul was doing that on Shopify at the time.
Don't say that too loud.
We were
Didn't you get in trouble or something? Logan Paul.
no.
No.
This wasn't one that he got in trouble with. That
Okay.
was one that it was very successful, actually.
Nice. Cool. So you've helped out with a few of the bigger projects. That would have been like 2021 then? 22 maybe?
2020, 21. No, it was very early on at that time.
Okay.
But what happened was Shopify saw that we were able to bridge the gap between sales on their platform and getting the assets distributed in a fashionable manner that didn't break the user experience.
No
So
doubt.
they asked us to be part of the Shopify platform, and we thought it was a good opportunity, and it's a good partnership to have, and a good integration.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congrats. That's really cool. And that's awesome that it's working so seamlessly. Do you see like an app for Ethereum Layer 1, for example, being available on Shopify? Are you limited with like, what you can develop for Shopify specifically?
No, we're not limited. We can do that, but we're always in the mindset of sponsoring gas fees, in the sense that you don't want to bring that complexity, and you don't want to bring that that cost into the picture, because we're not adding that as an additional fee to the end users or to the app.
But could you not, like if a collector is kind of coming there knowing that Ethereum Layer 1 has these gas fees, right, and you're reflecting those gas fees and whatever the assessed cost is at the time of purchase, do you think there would be a demand for that, or you're worried that essentially that gas thing, not enough people would understand it and it would just turn people off and then ultimately not be worth it? Is that the concern there?
Yes, that's just like the extra complexity, and where a lot of the assets is not really about selling at a high value. Shopify is not really the platform to do that as well. It's not like you're gonna do like high value art auctions on there.
Good point.
I think the prices on Shopify are limited as well. So I would say probably reserve that for other platforms, and also reserve that for platforms that offer auction experiences.
Totally makes sense, for sure. So how are you feeling about the NFT market these days? You mentioned the Logan Paul hype, the celebrity hype of 2021, and things seem to have died down a little bit. I'm still collecting art on chain all the time, and I know there are artists making their way and still making sales, so it's still alive a bit. But as I'm sure you've seen on your own back end, there's a little bit less energy in the NFT space. Do you have any thoughts or expectations about how or why NFTs may turn around and experience another bull market, or maybe they'll never be quite as exciting as they were 3 years ago? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I actually hope they won't be as exciting as it was 3 years ago, because the technology has its merits, but was used for the wrong reasons, right? And like anything that really hurts the industry as much as it helps it, as in it first drives growth, but then with the type of disillusionment, then everything dies down. So it's very volatile. It's not really easy to navigate. But if you take on the mindset as in blockchain as infrastructure, NFTs as a standard, right? It's just a token standard,
right?
And where you can say it has merits. You can add royalty applications. You can actually do royalty distribution in a fair and transparent manner. And if you can build that into your application in a seamless manner, then why wouldn't you use a technology that does transaction transparency and distribution in a better way? So
makes sense.
Build the right application, use the tools for the right reasons, and the technology will speak for itself.
100%.
And our APIs will just help you make it seamless. Yeah.
Let's go. That's awesome. I agree fully. And so I think the use cases there, the utility is another buzzword in Web3, right, is very clear. It's very obvious to those of us who have been in the tech for a little bit, and I don't think it's going away. Like I said, the artists are still making their ways, and we are seeing more and more Web3 games come out as well. Do you have any thoughts towards kind of the Web3 gaming space? And are you seeing a lot of Web3 gaming developers coming to you for that that wallet integration? I know we've talked to a couple other businesses that are looking at making that easy specifically for Web3 games, whereas Venly seems to have a much more kind of broader look at the integration conversation. But are you dealing with a lot of Web3 games? Do you think that the NFT use case in gaming is just starting? Do you think it's going to kind of continue to grow from here? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a very good question. If you look at the timeline of 21, 22, 23, I think in 21, 22, the philosophy was Web3 gaming is going to boom in 21, 22. It's going to crush everything and is going to carve out a significant market share within the gaming industry.
That was the hope.
Of course, that was the hope, right? Yeah. And then 22, 23 hit, and then it was more like, okay, get out of gaming. Gaming, play to earn, all of this is not going to work. And there's a big dissatisfaction with the Web3 games out there. And all of the gamers just don't want it, right?
Does seem to be. There's a lot of hesitant, a lot of FUD, I guess we would call it, right?
Yeah, and then you can see that how the market just completely dives down within the gaming segment. And there are, of course, a few that still remain and just continue to build forward. But the market demand is not as big as where it once was.
Mm.
Where we have always been in the space was we're not in the gaming industry, we're not in the e-commerce industry, we're not in the fintech industry, we're in the blockchain industry. And being in the blockchain industry, we're saying on any use case or market demand segment, wherever you are in the space, you need a better way to tap into this technology. And the first layer that we've done that is by translating everything and bringing it to the API. And if you have your use case in mind, you can use our API and it will work for your industry and for your use case because you know your business architecture and your concepts very well, and you know why you're going to use blockchain technology.
No doubt.
And if you then go into gaming, we did also see gaming as a industry first to market. Why is that? If you just look at the history of things, it is primarily gaming and porn that is the industries that are most innovative. So we took on the bet that let's add additional layers of integration within gaming first, because we all have wives. We're not going to do that for the porn industry.
Right. Not trying to get in trouble there.
Wasn't a good bet for us, right?
Yeah.
So that was the best bet for us. So with our APIs, what did we then do is we integrated that into the game engines. So you have then in Unreal and in Unity a game SDK.
Nice.
And one of the additional factors that you have to keep in mind is when you're gaming, your game engine, that's where you develop all your assets, but you're going to store your assets on your game server, which is on the back end. And then you still have to have the challenge of saying, okay, I've developed my assets in my game engine, my game is running over there, my assets are stored in the backend service. When and where am I going to communicate with the blockchain, and which type of standards am I going to be using? How am I going to add my wallet infrastructure information and link that to my game account? Well, you're not going to do that by adding a third-party wallet to break the interface. You're going to do that by leveraging APIs, connect that to your gaming backend service, and connect that to your game engine. So that's where we then specialize, providing that SDK, providing that full breadth of functionalities, so that when you're finally ready to say, I have a free-to-play game, I see the benefits of adding assets on chain, because you're going to add a royalty distribution on top of that, or token gating on top of that. Then you can use that integration method or that SDK over directly our APIs.
Wow, wow, that's pretty epic, and that's cool that you've partnered or you already have kind of usable SDK integration options for Unreal and for Unity. So those are kind of the two big ones, right? So anyone developing a game in there will be able to kind of link with you. So when looking at that and that integration, and you mentioned earlier that these assets essentially will always have to land in a Venly wallet to start, and then how easy does it look, or how easy is it for a user to then, transfer it to their own personal sovereign wallet, whether it's a MetaMask or a Phantom wallet, Coinbase, anything like that? Is it fairly simple at that point? It's just, choose your blockchain and send asset over, or is there like extra layers because of the way that the software is developed or the game's developed?
No, no extra layers. It doesn't always have to land in a Venly wallet.
Okay.
That's a misconception.
Okay.
It's because we have two different wallet solutions. The one with Shopify, it's an NFT integration, and we then distribute it to a Venly wallet, which is the wallet widget solution.
Okay.
And then that's an end user wallet that is, powered by Venly.
Okay, cool. And then so sending stuff off from that widget is pretty simple as well.
Of course,
Yeah.
It's just like it's actually a multi-chain, multi-wallet interface that you have using that wallet widget.
The wallet widget, nice. Okay, this is really cool. I have to check that out. Shopify is just a cool. I mean, I'm here in Canada too, right? I think we started over in Canada, so it's they've been doing pretty well. They're a big brand around this end as well. So how important do you think Ethereum is? Like I asked you kind of about layer one, and obviously we know the costs, but then you look at Polygon, Avalanche, Arbitrum. A lot of these are relying on that layer one Ethereum for kind of the decentralization of all their kind of what they're working on, but then they obviously are solving for the gas fee situation. So how important is kind of Ethereum to the whole evolution of Web3 in your perspective? I know you mentioned kind of just initially back in 2014 acknowledging smart contracts in the context of music, which we've also talked about a lot on this show, so we can talk about that. But how important is Ethereum to you and the whole kind of evolution of that blockchain specifically?
I think Ethereum, I would say they're the mothership, right? They provide a lot of the innovation, they provide a lot of the standards, and they push innovation forward. So if it isn't for Ethereum, the Ethereum Foundation, the ERPs out there, we're not going to see a lot of innovation coming out. Where I do think we're at a point where the space is moving so fast, but we're still not understanding that the majority of businesses are not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years behind compared to where Ethereum was like 3, 4 years ago, but it's 6, 7, 8, or 10 years behind.
Wow.
And not because they're slow, not because they're don't know how to integrate it. It's just as it's not yet the right time for them.
Right.
But at the same time, now they're it's still hard enough to integrate wallet infrastructure, right? Normal wallet infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about account abstraction, and we're solving another issue using account abstraction, but we're solving that at an infrastructure level.
Right.
But are we ready for those concepts in a business context for most of the businesses that are finally ready to start adopting the blockchain 1.0, blockchain 2.0 mindset?
Yeah, I mean, do you think so? Like that's what account abstraction, for example, is trying to solve for, right? Is trying to make it more business friendly and more kind of commercial friendly, right? So like how it's like you say, we're just 6 to 8 years behind, and industry and the markets basically just have to catch up. Is that
Well, no, I disagree on that point.
Okay.
As in, it's trying to solve that complexity. I think it's introducing a different type of complexity. You're then going to create all the logic on the infrastructure layer, where sometimes it would be better to do that at the application layer.
Mm,
So what is account abstraction, right? Why not combine your identity provider, for example, Okta, with a wallet API, which
right.
is not a smart contract wallet, just an API.
Mm,
And then if you want to communicate with a smart contract, well, that smart contract is not going to be as complex as a account abstracted wallet where you're creating all of this logic.
mm.
So I'm still in the situation where, is it tried and tested enough?
Yeah. And is
Is
it
it
that permanent too?
is it safe?
I haven't been keeping up with
Is
it.
it
Like,
not permanent?
yeah, it's like a permanent
Yeah.
change, or is it optional? Like once they've rolled it out, it's just in the infrastructure forevermore.
Well, it's not only that, right? But what happens in the event of a data leak, or where the smart contract is actually there's a hidden bug in it,
Mm,
and you're gonna, for example, lose funds, because
right.
that happens all the time, right? With
Right.
all the smart contracts that have been developed, and then where it wasn't as secure as once
Yeah.
thought. I don't see that it is taken up in the terms and conditions or liability frameworks to say, well, if you're interacting with these accounts, what's going to happen? Nobody's going to take responsibility or liability for that.
Mm. Yeah, I guess that is definitely a problem as well. Interesting. And do you think that Solana is, coming to kind of replace or eclipse Ethereum, or how do you feel about Solana as an innovation?
I think that Solana is doing very well in getting that market adoption and that community support. Um, Whether they're going to eclipse, I'm not sure, but I do think that they have a very good vision to build forward.
Mm,
So I follow Matt Sorg quite a lot on LinkedIn,
right.
and when he's posting, I do see a lot of sense of the things that he's saying.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, it's another one to watch for sure. So I noticed on your site, you kind of have it broken down into four main areas, right? So digital wallets, NFTs, payments, and digital assets, which haven't fully been rolled out yet. I'm curious about your thoughts on the real world digital asset conversation and how you see that kind of evolving from here. I've been hearing about it because I kind of work in the fintech space, and I've seen some startups that are talking about, tokenizing real estate, tokenizing other certain kind of assets, but mostly real estate is what I see as a business use case. How are you guys going to be rolling that out, and what are you kind of seeing as that corner of Web3 evolves? Like, what does real world digital asset tokenization look like to you?
Well, if you talk about RWA itself,
Mm,
I think it is similar to NFT, right, as a marketing term. So I'm a little bit cautious about that,
mm,
because here we are again going from ICO to NFT to RWA, as in, okay, we're finding another foothold where the concept of transactions would make sense. I see RWA and tokenization as you're going to create a digital twin for a real world asset. And if you're going to do that, there is going to be a sensible use case for it. If
mm.
there's no sensible use case for it, then you don't necessarily have to do it. And if you're then going to say, well, I'm going to yeah, create a platform to sell real estate and using RWA tokenized assets for that, and you can provide that framework to allow such a marketplace to exist, then you also have to make sure that you have all the legal requirements to do so.
Right, right.
So I see, or simply said, physical to digital, right? Just look at the e-commerce space. Um, I have my Bundy T-shirt on. If I buy that on Shopify and then I create a digital twin and distribute that as well, and I use that as a token gated asset, that's for me also an RWA use case, because you just combined something physical with something digital.
I love that. Taking it down to the fashion level. I hadn't actually thought about it that way. And that is another conversation we've talked about. Shout out to Shreya Bhan, is another amazing artist and fashion designer who is creating digital lines of fashion, essentially. So I hadn't actually thought about that in the context of RWA, because it is like there's an actual fashion item, and then she does a digital twin where you can wear that in the metaverse, whatever else. And just there's also an actual physical chip attached to the physical clothing that has a bunch of supply chain data on it, right? So you can actually see, from inception or from creation and all the way through to wherever it traveled. You can actually see that all right on the NFC chip. So it's a very cool kind of, like you say, physical to digital thing. And that's awesome. I hadn't actually thought about fashion in the context of real world assets. So that's an important point.
Yeah. But there's another use case that can be very interesting, in my opinion. So I just bought the T-shirt on the store. For me, it doesn't necessarily have to be linked to the physical chip, because it can be linked to the purchase that you've just done, right? So the shirt will be distributed, the NFT gets distributed, you get the NFT in your wallet, and it was linked to your purchase. What can you do with it? Well, what I can do with it is I can transfer it out to somebody else, or I can use that and use that for a discount. I can say, this is a token gated asset. If I go back to the website, or if I go back to the store, then I'm going to see different prices because I purchased something, or I have maybe multiple assets in my inventory, and I then get a different pricing experience.
I love that.
Or you can combine that with your affiliate marketing. As in, look, I'm going to create all of these collections. I'm going to share that with my influencers. I'm going to allow my influencers to actually distribute that to people. I'm going to track the on-chain transactions to see how are these assets being transferred over time. And then you're actually collecting marketing data on your asset distribution.
100%. And then you can go back and actually compensate those influencers who helped you get your assets out there, and whatever, drop them a little bit of crypto based on how much they got the word out. Maybe
you actually don't need to compensate them, because you can actually build that logic within the smart contract functionality.
Right. So it just goes out automatically for everyone who claims they get X percentage of the transaction cost or something like that. That's what you're thinking?
You would be able to write that in a contract. That's a possibility.
Very cool. Very cool. So what do you think are kind of the major pain points facing Web3? Obviously, you've spoken to kind of the user experience. You've spoken to the difficulty of still integrating wallets, and maybe depends on the blockchain as well. But out of kind of the full view of Web3 evolution, what do you think are kind of the major pain points still kind of holding us back?
I would say we're missing the ChatGPT moment, but I don't think we would ever get the ChatGPT moment for blockchain.
You didn't think Beeple's sale was the ChatGPT moment? In my mind, it was like that $60-something million NFT sale was the blow up moment that led to like everyone be like, oh wait, I can sell my art on the blockchain and and then the PFPs kind of took over, and unfortunately the art went by the wayside a little bit. But I do feel like there was kind of that moment of like everyone was excited and gung ho about it. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's excitement about the hype versus excitement about the value that was delivered by the blockchain network.
Yeah, good
and
point.
I think that's a major difference between what ChatGPT has done for AI versus what Beeple has done for the blockchain space, right?
Right.
So
Specifically
I would say
the NFT space, the
very
NFT
different.
art space,
Yeah.
That's interesting. But to your point, can we do an open AI type of scenario when we are decentralized, right? And I think you have all these kind of vying use cases saying, we've got the coolest use case. No, we've got the most exciting, sticky use case. And everyone's just forever trying to lay claim to certain corners of blockchain essentially, and why their projects are better than the other ones. And I guess there's still a level of competition in Web3, although I like to say that it's about collaboration over competition when going, from Web2 to Web3. We shouldn't be as like competition minded, Also, we also say, going from scarcity to abundance, and less scarcity mindset and more collaboration and abundance mindset. So I don't know. I just wonder if I don't know, maybe we're not meant to have some big one project just kind of like take the cake. There was the whole metaverse conversation too, right? Sandbox was going to be the metaverse, and they were going to just like have a whole digital world of people trading their NFTs and living in the metaverse, and that never really came to fruition. And I don't know how well Sandbox is doing this well. I noticed you're one of their partners there. So yeah, I don't know. I just wonder what it's going to take, or if because of the decentralized nature of blockchain, that's just not possible. What do you think?
I think it's 100% possible, but it's one of the value propositions that we're bringing forward, right? As in, why are you making it so hard to integrate it in such a way that we're pushing blockchain forward? Blockchain is, for me, always a back-end solution, as in the end user should never know it exists. And once you come into a place where you don't know it's a blockchain backend that is powering everything, that's also part of Moore's law that has to happen, right? As in, everything has to be scalable, high speed, and delivered in a way where you don't break the UX. Well, that's coming back to the point why I don't think blockchain is going to have that ChatGPT moment, because you shouldn't actually know that it is happening. Because think of it as it is the most boring technology that exists. The only thing that blockchain does better is accounting.
It's true. Nobody finds accounting sexy, right?
Yeah. So if you understand, here's your ledger. We're going to use the technology to automate accounting. We're going to use that as a source of truth, as a layer of transparency. We're going to do, of course, some smart applications on top of that. But in the end, it's just to improve accounting and develop applications on top of that, where you can say, okay, accounting plus decentralized. So
right,
it has its benefits and its merits, but
yeah,
it is a boring technology.
It's somewhat boring. I mean, to me, it's the peer-to-peer, like the art is what brought me in, and art is never boring, right? To me, but you're right, it is just a ledger, it's just a transaction, but it's the ability to transact globally, peer-to-peer, with no intermediaries, and see the value, go to that individual that, for example, you purchase art from. Like, that to me is a little bit more exciting, but yes, underneath the layer, it is fairly boring, just accounting technology, essentially. So yeah, fair point. Do you have any thoughts on the metaverse? Are you seeing a lot of metaverse I know I saw Sandbox on your site there, but any thoughts around kind of the evolution and the quietness of the metaverse? And there was a lot of hype, like you said, in 2021, 22. Everyone had this grandiose vision. Zuckerberg changed his business name, trying to position himself to take it over. And now everyone just kind of seems to shrug their shoulders, and it's just another video game that, might use on-chain digital assets. But what are your thoughts on the metaverse and where we're going from here?
Well, then it depends again, what is your definition of a metaverse? Metaverses have existed for a long time already.
Of course.
Do you consider Roblox a metaverse?
The on-chain metaverse, how about that? The Web3 metaverse, the promise of owning your land, owning your assets in the land, trading among your friends in the digital world. So the Web3 metaverse specifically, what do you think about that vision?
I think that's definitely going to happen. It's a matter of time, and a matter of developing the logic behind it, right? Where you can say, okay, I understand it's an ownership. I understand it's a trading experience. I'm using that to communicate and play with my players around me, and there is a more natural ecosystem between the various stakeholders. So I 100% believe that you can drive a better game economy with blockchain technology, because in the end, you're just going to use a ledger to prove all of these transactions that are going to be happening. So you're going to simplify a lot of things as long as you can take away all of the complexity involved to use that technology to transact between all of the different stakeholders.
100%. And you mentioned the token gating option as well, right? And so there's the ability in the future, when you have those digital twins, to say, only people who own my digital twin of this asset can, meet us in this room here, right? And if you don't have that digital asset in your wallet, you're not actually allowed into that space in the metaverse, So I think that's a kind of cool promise of Web3, the Web3 metaverse as well, like the digital hangout component. But again, maybe that's just the gamer in me. That might not be as appealing to a lot of other people out there. Lastly, I know we're hitting that 1 hour mark, so I want to respect your time. I'm curious, I work in fintech in the payment space in my day job, and I'm seeing the payments piece. I noticed you've actually partnered with Stripe. How are you looking, or how are you finding the kind of payment evolution in the blockchain space, in like you're mentioning Shopify as well? Just how popular is crypto payments becoming from your perspective? And do you think that there is less and less friction and more adoption of this method of payment, whether it's through Stripe, whether it's on Shopify? Just how are you viewing kind of the evolution of payments with crypto?
Yeah, so we're seeing, as in, you already have crypto and you're using crypto to pay, or you're
essentially, you're like a crypto native, like us, and you got your wallets, and every once in a while maybe you want to use some Base or some Polygon or some, probably not a layer 1 Ethereum or Bitcoin at this point, because they've gotten a little bit pricier on the transactions. But yeah, it's something easy to use without paying big gas fees. Is it becoming popular? Are you seeing more businesses using that?
We're seeing a lot more adoption of stablecoins, right?
Okay,
so we're going to use stablecoins for payments, because the volatility is then gone.
Mm-hmm.
We still see a high need for not necessarily better fiat to crypto on-ramping, because the on-ramping works well, but as in, doesn't make sense that for this type of conversion, you're always putting the KYC in front of the user that wants to on-ramp. You need better KYC adoption methods that is more in the back end instead of in the front end.
So a scenario where, like, if you have a business, you basically KYC your customers just to get access to the business, and then everything else flows smoothly. Because there, like, would you agree that there does kind of almost always have to be some KYC component? Especially these days, it seems like the regulators are slowly catching up. And if you want to be a public-facing, entity that's paying taxes, you kind of have to have that KYC checkbox checked off, right? So what's the easiest way to do it?
Yeah, but you can do a KYC check through your backend methods, right? So if I'm going to pay with my credit card on any given Web2 store or whatever,
right,
there's a KYC check going on my credit card. There's fraud prevention, fraud control happening in the backend. But am I at that moment in time adding my identity documentation,
being asked for all your government ID and everything? Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So the solution is connecting your wallet to your personhood natively somehow. Like, how would you do that?
The solution would be to make sure that you can get the KYC and identity check happening in the backend rather than the front end, and then you have to participate and work more with banks to get that actually done, right? I would think that with a payload, you'd be able to figure that problem and provide a solution for us.
Yeah, I mean, somewhat, but ultimately, the regulators want to see a documented kind of verification of the individual, and as of right now, banks are not at liberty to just give up, a confirmation or a verification of an individual based on a transaction. So I'm not sure what that solution is off the top of my head, but you're right. I definitely see your point as far as, like, just like a credit card has your personal name attached to it, has certain identification attached to it. They know when you go pay with it, they're going to use it. I guess on the flip side, that's going back to this whole decentralization versus centralization conversation. If it's truly decentralized, there should not be, government identification or, personal name or ID really attached to your Web3 wallet is the argument that some would make. Now, through on-chain analytics and all this, I'm sure that stuff is probably already available for most people who know how to, or for people who know how to follow the breadcrumbs, kind of, right? But yeah, it's an interesting conversation. We know the decentralization diehards are going to, not be happy about that concept of having back-end KYC and basically verifying people without even asking, or just knowing it through the data somehow.
Well, do you know Midnight Network?
No, I'm not too familiar with that one.
That's another one that's developing really interesting solutions on blockchain. What they're doing is they're empowering data protection with CK, but really making sure that you have data privacy and compliancy, so that you can't actually track all of the breadcrumbs, like you say. But they are positioning the protocol where you would be able to go back to the regulator and say, look, this is a proven transaction. It is done compliantly, and no, you're not allowed to know what the details are within the transaction, but you should be able to take it on and make sure that it is a regulated transaction as it may.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting, and there has to be some tech forward solutions for that for sure. So I'm curious, what are you most seeing at Venly? What's the kind of biggest use case? Is that Shopify use case kind of the most popular that you're seeing right now, or what's the one industry that's really leading the pack?
We don't have one industry that's leading the pack.
Okay.
We have Web3 devs that come directly to us and build on top of us. We have customers that are building on top of Shopify, and that we sometimes don't see that until we see huge spikes in sales happening. We just added another loyalty platform that is then diving further in the loyalty space. So it's more and more where we're focusing on integrations, and those integrations can power use cases in various industries. And for us, it's going deeper and deeper into the conversations where we can help the business, we can help the developer, but we're not necessarily talking about their own business, but more as in what are the challenges when it comes to adopting blockchain.
Okay. So you're really kind of running the gamut, I guess. Wherever, whenever you're called upon, you come and help. The loyalty use case is definitely an interesting one. I don't know if you heard about Starbucks kind of canceled their whole partnership with Polygon, and I always was pointing to that as kind of an interesting option that is a good use case, a good example of what works, right? Do you think that loyalty use case is one that's really on the up and up? And do you think that Starbucks situation was just kind of maybe Polygon was charging them too much money or something, or did they actually just miss the boat on the use case?
I'm not sure if Polygon actually did that themselves. I think there was an agency service in between that, and that was building on top of it. I don't know enough about that Starbucks use case, in all honesty. I've heard about it. Of course, everybody has heard about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the driving factor was to build that loyalty use case.
Okay.
But I do see loyalty as a use case where it would make sense, because you're going to add transactions, you're going to add loyalty points, you're going to add all of this additional information,
special perks, airdrops,
into that, where then it would make sense. But it then comes down to the implementation and the application. Like everything, did you see the Lufthansa one? That was also on Polygon, but they were also developing natively.
No, I didn't see that.
They have the Miles and More program, right?
Okay.
I think it's Miles and More, and that's the traditional loyalty program. And then they've set up a Web3 based loyalty program, where you have an NFT collection And they can actually, I think, check the two programs in parallel and see which drives more conversion.
Nice. Nice. That's cool. So they're kind of taking the Web 2.5 approach, you could say. There's a standard kind of loyalty program, and there's the Web 3 loyalty program, and you can have your choice, and they're comparing both of them.
No, they're two different apps. Huh?
Oh, they're actually two different apps altogether. Okay. Well, interesting. Yeah. Very cool, very cool. So yeah, loyalty is another one that we're definitely going to continue to see evolving. I guess just curious, what are you most excited about looking at 2025 and whatever's around the corner for Venly? It sounds like you have a lot on the go. Anything you'd like to share with us that you're kind of most looking forward to?
I'm most looking forward to getting our developer platform more in front of the eyes and the businesses of developers that are eager and willing to get blockchain working for their business, and where we can take away all of their pains for them. And that's what we're doing. We're just concentrating on optimizing our data-driven approach, optimizing our sales and marketing approach. So we're actually doing the very boring stuff of reevaluating the entire go-to-market.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, that's amazing. Any developers listening in, check it out at venly.io. It's a really great solution, and they're here for you. They want to work with developers and really always innovating and adapting. So it's really fascinating what you're working on, Tim, and I do appreciate your time. Do you have anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up here?
I just want to share or express my gratitude for having me here. I don't do many podcasts, so always happy to do one. But
Awesome.
given my lack of time, I try to reserve my time for you.
Yeah. Business. You're always on the go. I appreciate that. I'm very grateful that we were able to pull you away for this brief hour. And we'll be having it live on the podcast networks by this Sunday. And we'll share it out on our Twitter and all the other social medias. And we'll send it over to you as well, Tim. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, we will